Hello, everybody. Jerry Jones here with Jerry Jones Direct. And with me on the screen, as you can see, is Dr. Mitch Levin. Mitch is joining us today from Utah. Sometimes he's in Florida. Sometimes he's in Utah. I don't know where he's at most of the time, but he splits his time between those two areas. And I'm excited because tonight, this is kind of a departure a bit from the normal Jerry Jones Direct type content. It would be like me talking about clinical dentistry. That's a departure. But by golly, sure enough, we've got somebody coming up here pretty soon on my podcast for clinical dentistry. So a couple of housekeeping bits here before we get going. What I'm looking for here from you for the next hour is for you to really pay attention, stay focused, and most importantly, this is going to be an interactive webinar. This isn't where Dr. Levin is just going to be lecturing at you. He's going to be talking with us. And we're going to develop a conversation here. And so it's important that as you're joining us and you're paying attention, I want you to formulate questions about what we're talking about. And by chance, if it's a topic that maybe we just brush on and it's of interest, ask the question. It's really important. Dr. Levin and I are going to get a lot more out of this, and we're going to get more out of each other if your participation is at a higher level. So keep your distractions to a minimum. I understand if things come up, but do keep your distractions to a minimum, because this is really important content. This is like what can change the financial dynamic of your personal and professional lives. And so, it's going to be an important hour that we spend together. A little bit about our guest, Dr. Levin. I literally could take up probably a good 10 minutes talking about his accomplishments and accolades, but let me cut to the chase, because I think this is maybe the most important thing. Mitch retired at 46 as a physician, not because he was super fast, could do 100 surgeries in a day, but because of his business acumen, because he figured out what it meant to generate cash flow and to minimize debt, the wrong kind of debt, and to maximize and leverage the right kind of debt. Mitch has been around. He's I don't know how many business transactions he's bought and sold, a number of companies. Is it a little over 100 million now, Mitch? Is that where you're at?
It's 537 million.
Wow, jeez. Okay, so I was off 400 million. Yeah, that's enough to build a wall. So 500 and some odd, $500 million in business transactions. So we don't have a neophyte with us. We don't have somebody who's just getting started. He's a Harvard grad, and medical school. Harvard, is that where you went, Mitch?
Graduate school.
Graduate school. So I like I said, I could go on and on. But let's just put it this way: Mitch is a highly accomplished individual. I met him when I was doing some work with a small group of 7- and 8-figure financial planners. And at that time, Mitch was at the helm of a financial planning company that worked with high net worth retirees and business owners in Florida and some of the other states in the South. I'm a client of Mitch's financial former company, because you have exited that one as well. Am I correct?
That's correct. That's correct. I sold it.
I have a hard time keeping up with you, Mitch. I mean, it's like, what is he doing? He's moving, he's shaking, he's all over. I love it.
Well, I'm still a client of that firm. I developed these and refined these great systems, and it's just fantastic. So they're doing great.
Awesome. So, Mitch, I'm excited to have you a part of this tonight, and I think we're going to get a lot out of this. And like I said, I could go on and on, but you have before you a genuine individual who understands structuring business purchases, business sales, commercial real estate. He's been involved in commercial real estate extensively. You're a very traveled man. You're highly educated in both the traditional sense, college and graduate school, medical school, as well as a school of hard knocks, because, we all learn some of our best lessons from that. So welcome to the Jerry Jones Direct webinar tonight, everybody. And thank you for our special guest, Dr. Mitch Levin, for joining us. So Mitch, where would you like to start? How do you want to get this baby rolling?
Well, I think the first thing we're going to do is find some money for people right now. And let's start with finding the money. And then we'll go into this. I gave a talk to several hundred law firms in Washington, D.C. not long ago, and I'm going to do some of that. And then we'll have some questions and answers, and then we'll see how people feel about what they've heard, and maybe we can help someone right now, today. So the first thing I'd like everybody to write down, and you feel free to chat this back to Jerry. And Jerry, thank you for that wonderful introduction. Thanks for being the great guy that you are. And I appreciate the opportunity to be here and help. The first thing I'd like everybody to write down is, which is better for the banks? A 15-year mortgage or a 30-year mortgage? Feel free to text that to Jerry. Everyone who thinks 15-year mortgage, text A. If you think it's a 30-year mortgage, text B. And Jerry, see what kind of responses you're getting.
Yeah, you bet. And just to remind folks, if you've joined me on a webinar before, you can use the chat function. There's a little balloon at the bottom of your screen that says chat. And all you have to do is type in your response in that chat box and it'll pop up. So David Stahl, hey David, good to have you here. David's joining us from the state of Pennsylvania. 15-year mortgage, says David. And looks like Jim is entering a response as well. Jim, I don't quite have your full response there, but it looks like you have a partial response.
He put B.
I'm sorry, B. Yeah, there we go.
Yeah,
so is that the 30-year?
That's the 30-year. So ask yourself this question. Why would a bank offer a lower interest rate on the 15-year mortgage? Usually it's 3.5% to 4% now, versus a 30-year mortgage, which is 4.5% to 5% now. And the answer is yes. Whoever said is the 15-year mortgage, it is definitely the 15-year mortgage that's better for the banks. So why is that? Why is that better for the banks? Because they live on something called the velocity of money multiplier, which means that if you deposit $1 into the bank, they get to lend out $10 to you and me and everybody on the line. And then when we pay back $1, they get to lend out another $10. And it just keeps going and going and going. So they incentivize you to buy a 15-year mortgage so that they can make more money in the process. And I'm going to show you how to do a velocity of money multiplier for yourself about 3/4 of the way through this webinar. And so pay careful attention. And what we hear a lot from the financial media is not much different than we hear from the fake political news. There's the financial media complex, which is a term I coined about 10 or 12 years ago, is all about helping the companies, the Wall Streets, the big money center banks, and it's not about helping you and me. And one example of that could be the 401k. The 401k is first of all, they took the information from the insurance segment of the tax code, section 770. So in insurance, they said you can do X, Y, and Z, and then actually Senator Roth said we're going to follow that exactly. So your Roth 401k and your Roth IRA is exactly following the life insurance codes, and yet it has restrictions that you don't want. So what are the restrictions in a 401k? They tell you how much you can put in. They tell you what you can put in, when you can put it in. Then they tell you what you can take out, when you can take it out. And oh, by the way, we'll let you know what the tax rate is later. Now, with $22 trillion in debt, how many of us believe that tax rates are likely to go down in the future? Now, I'm not in the business of predicting the future, but we've got $22 trillion in debt, and that money's got to come from somewhere. Your good friend AOC thinks it should come from those of us who have the money, which is the only place they're going to get it. They want to do a wealth tax, and they want to do a 70% and a 90% tax rate. And by the way, don't be fooled, because the tax rates were in the 1940s as high as 94%. They were in the 1960s 90% until JFK brought them down to 70%. So that is likely to happen. So how do I find you the money in that regard? It's all about cash flow. While cash is king, cash flow is the emperor of the universe. One thing that we don't tend to do when it comes to money is to think thoroughly. What we tend to do is to silo our money. And when we do that, we say, well, I've got this money going here, and I've saved some tax this year because I've put my 10 or 18,000 or whatever the number is this year that you're allowed to put into your 401k. I'm paying less in tax. Well, you're doing two things. Yes, you're paying less in tax currently. You're postponing the tax, which they call tax deferral, and you're also postponing the tax calculation. What are tax rates going to be in the future? Now, those of us who are going to be broke, well, your tax rate's going to be low. So congratulations, you're going to be broke. It doesn't matter. Go ahead and put as much money as you can in your 401k. If you're not going to be broke, then what that means is you're going to be in the higher tax bracket because you're missing two things. You won't have any deductions, which is most people say, well, I got a $500,000 house, I got a $500,000 in my 401k, and I want my house paid off at retirement, then I'll live off my 401k. Well, you don't have a mortgage to deduct any longer. So now you're at the full tax rate that the IRS can impose upon you, and you can't drink this problem pretty. If you owe if you've got $500,000, you owe $200,000 to the IRS. It doesn't matter what state you're in. It doesn't matter whether you take it out in pieces. It doesn't matter whether you take it out all at once. And if some financial mensa comes along and says, well, I can double it, well, guess what just happened? Your taxes doubled too, not your tax rate. So if you go from $500,000 to $1 million in your 401k, you now owe $400,000, not $200,000. That cannot be drunk pretty. So I would encourage you to understand and think thoroughly about what you're doing. Not only that, you're missing out on the opportunity cost of the cash flow. Not only that, you're restricted as to what you can put the money in. You cannot invest it into real estate in 401ks. Yes, you can in a self-directed IRA. You cannot put, which has great tax benefits. You also don't get to take advantage of the capital gains rates because everything comes out as income tax rates. And capital gains rates have rarely been as high as income tax rates. So while you're told by the financial media complex to put money in your 401k, I would encourage you to only do it up to the company match. Since most of you on the line own your own companies and you're deciding your own match, that 401k is probably not doing what you think it's going to be doing for you. So back to finding the money now in the mortgage. It's the similar concept. If you put money into your house by paying your mortgage down faster, you cannot get that money back out unless or until you are able to borrow it or you're able to sell it. Otherwise, that money is a dead asset. So let's look at it this way. Remember during Hurricane Katrina, and they had these $1 million mansions sitting on the edge of the river. And if Jerry and I had identical mansions sitting on the river, and he had a 100% mortgage and $1 million in his bank account and owed $1 million to the bank, and I had $1 million house, but I paid the house down and I had no mortgage and I had no money in the bank, who was better off during that catastrophe? Not only that, let's just suppose there's no catastrophe. Let's just suppose this $1 million house is right next door and Jerry has a 100% mortgage and I have a 0 mortgage. I've paid off the house. Which house goes up or down in value more? Chat to Jerry. Whose house goes up or down more? The one with the 100% mortgage or the one with 0 mortgage? We'll wait a little bit. Who thinks that the 100% mortgage house goes up in value more versus the 0 mortgage house goes up in value more? I just lost your audio, Jim.
Yeah, I accidentally muted myself. You can put your answers in the chat box right there. Thank you, David. David says 100%. David, you're going to get the gold star for participation tonight. Jim says 8%. Jim, you are too. You both are like batting 1,000 here.
Okay, so let me disabuse you of that notion as well. Each house goes up or down in value depending on the market conditions, regardless of whether or not there's a mortgage. Jerry's $1 million house might go up 50% if the market conditions go up 50%, as will mine. Jerry will have a greater rate of return on his capital, but the house goes up in value identically. It doesn't matter whether or not there's a mortgage. Therefore, the equity in your house only and always earns 0. It could never earn anything but. And I personally have substantial assets and had substantial assets at a bank with investments, and I wanted to get a mortgage on my beach house. I didn't have enough earned income. The same thing happened to T. Boone Pickens. T. Boone Pickens is a billionaire. He gave $100 million to the University of Oklahoma. In the same year, he tried to get a mortgage on his house, and they denied him the mortgage on his house. So good luck with that. So you want to have the cash flow. So the opportunity cost on that money is also something. This is where you're going to find the money. It doesn't matter what rate of return you think you could get. And it doesn't, but if somebody write in what you think that rate of return is on any investment. It could be 1%, it could be 15%, whatever that money is, it doesn't matter. Because you can earn that rate of return somewhere, and that is your opportunity cost. And that opportunity cost persists until you die. It never, ever goes away. And if you're going to leave money to somebody else in the future, and most of us will, because very few of us are going to be able to die broke, that opportunity cost even persists then. So let's just say that you could get 5% somewhere. And I know dozens of places you could get 5%. So if you take that 5% on $100,000 in the down payment of your house, well, in 20 years, that 5% is going to equate to another $100,000. So you've just lost $100,000 just on the equity you put down on your house. Okay. Anyone who's got a decent, we're going to move along. So I just wanted to make sure that I found you some money right now. If you can, and if you can qualify, refinance your house to improve your cash flow. We can go through in much more detail on that at another time, but right now you've just learned the basics as to why cash flow and opportunity cost is really a powerful help for you. So if you've got a decent practice, Jerry, you want to say something? You're on mute.
Do you mind if I recap that real quick? Sorry. My mute button is too easy to hit. So what you're saying, what I'm hearing you say is that there's consumer debt, which we're not talking about consumer debt. We're talking about debt that is leveraged against an asset, a real asset, a property, whether it's a commercial property or a home. And essentially what you're saying is you want to maximize the cash flow available from that asset. So if you don't have a mortgage, you really ought to consider getting a mortgage. Or if your mortgage is such that you could refinance it and lower your payment. So maybe you go from a $2,800 a month payment down to a $2,100 a month payment. That gives you $700 a month you didn't have before, because the game today is about cash flow. It isn't like how many assets you stock up, right? Because an asset isn't producing income unless, I don't want to, I think I'm diving off the deep end there, but
no,
am I kind of summing it up
right
in the right spot?
Yep, you're right on the right spot. Now, I'm not saying that debt is a good thing. So let's talk about two concepts here. And I was going to go to them a little later, but this is a good jumping off point. Okay. Concept number one is, and never forget this, I highly encourage you to write this down. You finance everything you purchase. Mm-hmm. You finance everything you purchase. You either borrow money from someone else, in which case you pay that person interest, or you use your own capital, in which case you forego opportunity cost. Now, what is that opportunity cost? Well, if you're going to invest in the markets, you'll get 6-7% over a long period of time. Okay, great. If you invest in real estate, you might get 9, 10, 11% if it's leveraged. Okay, great. If you invest in your own business, you might get 10, 15, 20%. Okay, even better. So if that's the case, then why would you give up that opportunity cost? If you could borrow at 5% and earn at 10, 15, 20%, you're in better condition. What's not good is when you borrow money for some consumable, like a vacation, an education, and so forth that you don't have, hoping that your future income will cover it. There is a difference between a debtor, a saver, and a wealth creator. A debtor starts out with zero, borrows money to buy something this person cannot afford, and then over time gets back to zero. A saver starts out, it saves money, takes time to save money, so boom, 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 saves money, And then over time goes back to zero to drain that account to buy whatever that is. It could be a car, it could be a practice, it could be anything. And a wealth creator starts out with some capital, borrows, pays back that capital, and does it again and again and again and again. And that curve that I'm just creating right now is the compound curve. It is the power curve. And right about the knee where it starts to go up and starts to accelerate, that's where that compounding really takes effect. And it takes time to build. It takes time to build that bank. In most cases, it takes 3, 5, 7, 10 years, depending on how much you're able to save. So I'm not in favor of somebody borrowing money to go buy a Ferrari. I am in favor of somebody borrowing money to buy a house because the house is likely to go up in value. And even if it doesn't go up in value, it costs money to live indoors. So you're either going to pay rent to a landlord or you're going to pay this mortgage to a bank. And if you pay it down, that asset's a dead asset earning zero. Zero. So let's move along if we can. Is that okay, Jerry?
Again, you're on. Yep.
Okay, great. So if you've got a decent practice, and I suspect those of you on this call do have a decent practice, just let Jerry know that you think you have a decent practice. And if you do, I want you to take this little quiz. First of all, if it's not a decent practice, just write a little note to yourself. Don't share this with anybody. Keep this private. What's the number one thing in your practice you'd like to be different? Is it cash flow? Is it HR? Is it number of customers? What is it about your practice you'd like to be different? And don't share that with anybody right now. Okay, here's one. If you are an above average, we're going to do these quizzes really quickly right now. If you're an above average driver, just text Jerry, yes. If you have above average intellect, text Jerry, yes. If you're an above average attorney, text Jerry, yes. Let's see how many texts we get in right now. Because I want to share with you that as these texts come in, okay, so a lot of people are saying yes. Now think about this. How many of us believe we're an above average driver, right? Just about every man on the line. I'll be the first man to admit I am a below average driver. My wife's a better driver than I am because I don't pay attention. I'm busy looking all over the place. And here's the other thing about averages. On average, if Bill Gates were on this webinar, we'd all be a billionaire. Averages are not that meaningful. So if you believe you're above average, you might be, and yet that is mathematically inconsistent with reality. All of us are pretty much average individuals. Yes, we might have an above average income versus the average American, but I don't have much of any income at all, and yet I'm in the top 0.1% or even larger in wealth. So be careful about averages. I'm going to share with you another monetary quiz. I'm going to right now tell you that let's just assume that I'm a financial Mensa, and I'm going to guarantee you a 20% gain over the next 2 years. Everybody take out a piece of paper and create a column. So on the top, and then with a T in the middle. And on the top, on this one side, I want you to write math. And on the top, on the other side, I want you to write money. Then along the left-hand column, write year 1, year 2, underneath the total, then divide that by 2, and that'll be the average. So on the left-hand side on money, let's just assume that year 1, we go up 100%. So write 100% left-hand side on that column. Jerry, as you're writing this, maybe you could share this. We go up 100%, and we're going to start, and then in the year 2, we go down 60%. What's that total then? And share that. See if you can, as you're writing this, see if you can share that. What's that look like?
It's going to be backwards. I don't know if people can
see.
I should have wrote backwards.
Put it under money. Put that under math. Put that under math. Change that one more time.
Okay.
Math on the left, money on the right. And hold it up higher so we could see it. We can't see it. Higher, 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 higher. Yeah, so on the math side, you go up 100% and then down 60% on number 2. Do that.
Okay. That's where everybody's at.
That's where everybody's at. Again, put it on the math side. You put it on the money side.
I've got 2 sheets of paper going here, bitch. Sorry.
I want to make sure everybody gets this concept.
Okay, there we go. Got it right now.
There you go. Good. So what's the average now? So you went up 100%, down 60%. Now you're left with how much total? Should be 40%, correct?
Mm-hmm.
And if you divide that by 2, we won't worry about compounding. Therefore, you have a 20% average. Pretty cool. We went up 100% year 1, down 60% year 2. We got a 20% average rate of return. Now, this is exactly how the mutual fund industry is able to talk about their returns. All of Wall Street is allowed to do this. This is called average. Now, let's look at what money does on the right-hand side. So on your right-hand side where you wrote down money, put $1 million right next to money. And on year 1, we go up 100%. Therefore, how much is in that column at year 1? Should be 2 million, correct?
2 million.
Just show that with everybody, if you don't mind right now.
You guys can see my chicken scratch. I keep scratching things out, moving things.
Perfect. Yep. So you should be at 2 million at year 1.
Yep.
Now you go down 60%. How much did you lose? And don't feel bad if you don't get this, Jerry. I have given this talk to hundreds of lawyers, hundreds and hundreds of financial advisors, and hundreds of CPAs, and it's rare for them to get it correct.
So 60% of 2 million, right?
Yes.
That's your math. So 6 times 2 is 12. So you're down 1.2 million.
1.2 million. And we started with 2 million after year 1. So now how much do we have left?
You have $800,000 left.
Therefore, we lost $200,000. But why aren't you happy? I just got you a 20% return.
No, we lost more than 200,000, right? Oh, if we started at 1 million, yes.
Yeah. Started at 1 million. I don't understand why you're not happy. I got you a 20% return. And this is how financial advisors are working. This is the kind of thing that can be killing you. So we've got all kinds of biases, and we've got recency bias, we've got crime rate biases, we've got extreme poverty biases. And I just read a book, a really fascinating book for those of you who or readers and might be interested in. It's called Factology. This is an A, B, and C question, a multiple choice question. What percentage of girls have a greater than 8th grade education in the world? A, 20%, B, 50%, C, 80%. Text that to Jerry. How many think it's A? How many think it's B? How many think it's C?
Jim says 20%. David Stahl says 20%.
So now that is really consistent with what is going on when this author gave the talks to the UN. He gave it to a variety of different specialists and so forth. He said this is absolutely incorrect. The answer is 80% in the world of all girls get more than an 8th grade education. Now, what's really interesting is if you ask that question to chimpanzees, they would guess 33% because it's a random answer. And yet these specialists who are supposed to know the answer all get it wrong. They go 20%. It's worse than random. It's a bias that they have. So be very cautious with our biases. We all have weird kinds of biases. And I'd also like to ask you this question. What if you won the lottery? How would your life be different? Would you practice dentistry? If so, how? Write it down. Don't share that with us. Don't share that with anybody. And I think this is the last one of the no, it's not one of the last quiz questions. I want you to write down how long you've been in practice in years. Get out your calculator. Also write down what your average gross revenue is. Here's how we're going to start your average gross revenue. Let's assume that you started your practice from 0 in year 1, and now you're in year 20 and you're doing $1 million a year. If that's the case, then you've done $500,000 on average for 20 years, and multiply that number, whatever your number is. So however long you've been in practice, times half of your current existing gross revenue. Let's just assume that's the real number. Then I want you to multiply that half of your current gross revenue times the number of years in practice. So if you're doing $1 million, you've been in practice for 20 years, you've done $10 million worth of gross revenue. So now here's the painful part. How much of that money is sitting in your bank account? Not how much is in your practice, not how much is in your house. How much can you access if you needed to within the next 3 to 6 months without having to sell your house or your practice? And compare those numbers to the first number, that $10 million number. And if that number makes you sick, pay really careful attention here. How much do you think, and this is the last question now, how much do you think you need to retire? How much money do you think you need to retire on? And why? And is it a cash amount or is it a cash flow amount? Write those down and then answer yourself this question. How do you decide? Again, don't share that with anybody. This is for your own benefit. So why did we do this pop quiz? It's to show you that we're all wired in a way that we must overcome to attract and retain more money. Now, my poll indicates that dentists are among the most skeptical and independent-minded professionals, of widely reputed professionals who are independent and skeptical. And you've got every reason to be. And today you're going to discover some secrets. How to magnetically attract and hold on to money, how to achieve a work optional lifestyle in the practice of your dreams. And I guarantee it can be done. Also, I guarantee today you're going to learn some very new things, or I will have reminded you of something very important you will have forgotten. And that's not all. And if you do, you'll have an opportunity to make and save more time and more money, guaranteed. And I hope that's okay with you. If it is, please chat with Jerry if it's okay for me to show you how to do that. So in the next few minutes, I want to go over compounding. So there's something called the power curve, and this depends on the 80-20 rule. We all have heard the rule. And it started out with a guy named Pareto, who you've probably heard of, who was looking at in northern Italy, which is now northern Italy. Before it wasn't northern Italy, but you get how Europe dealt with their territories. And he noticed that 20% of the properties were owned by 80% of the nobility, and 80% of the property was owned by 20% of the nobility. And he was a mathematician. And you could look at this in every way. You can look at this among your employees. You could look at this among your practice compared to other practices. You can look at this among your patients. And I am sending this message only to those of you who are truly listening. Some people call it racking the shotgun. I call it using the right bait in the right pond. Some people call it using a dog whistle. Most people will ignore these messages. Few will respond, and fewer still will take the action necessary. You are the ones, those of you who are going to take the action, you are the ones that I am talking to right here, right now. Are you in the 20% of the 20%? So some of the challenges that we've got. We're on a hamster wheel. We're working too hard. We haven't got enough time. We feel like you're painting a moving train. You fear that as you age, you won't be able to do the practice that you're trained so well at doing. Some of us have hit a growth ceiling. That growth ceiling means that we're at $1 million now, and we've bid at $1 million for the last 3, 5, 10 years, and we don't know how do we break out to 2, 3, 5, $10 million? And I've got practices who are doing much more than that. In fact, I've got somebody that I was on the phone with this week, and when I met him, he was doing about $1.6 million, $1.7 million. He's been a client of mine now for 8 years. He's now doing $5 million, and he's hardly doing anything but what he wants to do. I think it's just really terrific. And I want to show you how if you're afraid of taking that 3-week vacation because of the business that you're going to lose, not just the cost of the vacation of going to Europe for 3 weeks, it's the cost of if you're the person in your practice who's generating the revenue. How do you do that? Or not trusting your employees, and even worse, not trusting your professional employees. My latest book, which is not in publication yet, I'm at the 4th edit. It's called Whose Job Is It Anyway? And it's how to hold top talent accountable. You may have cash flow frustrations. You're not earning as much as you should. You're not earning as much as you could. What about the competitor down the street who is not as good as you are and yet has a much bigger practice? What's going on with that? Why can't you be better than that guy financially as well? And your patients, they may not be exactly what you dreamed of. Hint, if you're selling dog food, why would you talk to cat owners? Talk to dog owners. Talk to dog owners with big dogs and lots of them. Talk to kennel owners. So it all depends on what you're really good at in your practice and who your ideal customer is. Notice I said customer and not patient, because most of us are really trying to deliver the best professional service we can deliver to our patients. And yet I'll wager that a bunch of us on this call right now are not delivering high quality customer service to our customers. They are one and the same individual. But think about this, how many referrals do you get? If your practice isn't growing 5, 10, 15% per year, and you're not getting multiple referrals from your existing customer base, multiple referrals, that's proof positive that your customer service is lacking and needs a little bit of help. And I'm going to share with you how to do that. I've got a practice in Chicago area. We talked about that, and I think that this could be very powerful for each of you. How do you hire and train and hold accountable these people? I don't have time to go into that today, but we can and will do that in later dates. How do you increase profits and develop a scalable, saleable practice? Right now, dental practices go for this level, and yet it's a fraction of what it could be compared to some other professional services organizations and other businesses. How should you handle cash and your savings? How and where can you start to amass your critical capital mass? Write that term down, critical capital mass. Because when you hit that curve that we talked about, you need critical capital mass for that money to start to really compound. And compounding is something that we know, we've heard of, we understand, but we've not really internalized it. And we certainly have not utilized that powerful, powerful tool. So there are 5 common mistakes that solo and small practices make and how to avoid them. And you're going to be amazed when you hear them. They're pricing, population, processes, profit, and people. I'll repeat that. Pricing, population, processes, profit, and people. And there are 7 common leaks in your bucket and how to plug them for good. Are you ready? I'm going to talk about them in a couple of minutes. Write down the fact that there are leaks in your bucket. So here's what happens. We all have a bucket, and that bucket is holding our money. And what does the financial media complex tell us to do? Pour more money into the top of the bucket. But if we've got leaks in that bucket, It doesn't matter how much you pour in, it's never going to fill up. So if you've got 1, 2, or all 7 of these leaks, how many leaks would you like to plug? Most of us would say all of them. And I'm going to show you some of those in a moment. So the solutions, you can do better, and here is how in 2 simple steps. Number 1, use the cardinal laws of practice success. I'll go through those in just a moment. And number 2, I want you to use the owner's freedom formula. So here are the 5 cardinal laws. And please don't make fun of me because I like alliteration. 1 is clarity. 2 is commitment. 3 is communication. 4 is customer. And 5 is cash and cash flow. Here's your bonus law: consistency. We don't have time to go into them here. I do have an article that I've written about it, and if you ask Jerry, we can get you a copy of that article and how that works. And here's the owner freedom formula. This is another writer downer. Freedom formula number 1. Love your patients as your customers. And most of us don't love our patients, and I can prove it to you. And that's a sad thing. I went to a doctor's office today to get a vaccine, and because I'm going to Egypt in April, and I need typhus and whatever and all that other stuff, and they don't love their customers. Number 2, get more customers. Number 3, know your numbers. Most of us don't know our numbers. Number 4, walk the floor. What does that mean? Well, in manufacturing, that means you go to the factory floor. In your practice, it means knowing what your people are doing. And you got to get the time to be able to walk the floor and know what you're measuring and how to measure it. And you got to get clear on that. That's why I gave you the 5 cardinal laws. Clarity is number 1. And number 5 on the freedom formula is lifestyle control. Here's what happens, and this is the hardest one and the worst one for most of us, especially those of us who've gone to dental school or gone to medical school, and we're practicing, and we have this entitlement mentality. I spent all these years in training while all my colleagues and friends who were not in professional training got to live the good life, and they got to go on vacation and buy BMWs, and I'm a poor student with loans, and I got to go buy this and get this capital, develop my operatories, and on and on and on. And so we get this. All of a sudden now we get $150,000 and we live on $150,000. Problem. Bad problem. You've got to save, and save a lot, and save early. So the best time to plant that tree was 20 years ago. Okay, I get it. The second best time to plant the tree is right now. We cannot change the past. We may be able to affect the future by our current inputs. So Jerry, at this point, let me take a break and see if you have any questions or anybody on this webinar has any questions. You're on mute.
We did get one request for an article, by the way, from Dr. Priest.
Okay, great. So now I want to move from the abstract to the concrete, because I promised that you're going to get something really valuable out of tonight. Here's how to improve the practice. So here are the details. It's how you think about money and debt. We talked about that. What's the difference between a saver, a debtor, and a wealth creator? We talked about that. Here's one we didn't talk about, and it's called the Private Capital Reserve Strategy. You can download this now. If you go to www.myassetprotectiongroup.com.
I'll go ahead and type that in, by the way.
You can get that. You can get that little white paper on private capital reserve strategy. It's how you can be more like a bank than a customer of the bank. How you can earn tax-free interest, principal protection, access your cash tax-free at any time and for any reason, and most importantly, you get to control your repayments. And here's what's really cool. You get to do it again and again. Now, it takes a few years to do it because remember, you got to build that critical capital mass, but now you're on that velocity of money multiplier we talked about in the very beginning. And it is fun when you do it. It is really fun. So, Jerry, do you have something you want to add?
Well, I had this idea. I don't know if this is appropriate or not, but I thought, what the heck, I'd throw it out there. So we've got a lot of the guys and gals that are on this webinar are very likely real estate investors of some kind, whether they own their own home, which to me, you qualify as a real estate investor if you have a property because you're investing money every month. So real estate, is very common. I'm right now in the process of purchasing a duplex. So I think maybe, is there a possibility we could use that illustration to illustrate some of the concepts? I mean, in particular, I think the one that I find really, interesting is debt, is leveraging the debt. And so let's say the property's, it's a $300,000 property and you have to put 25% down. So, roughly $70,000 down. What does that look like from a wealth creation standpoint?
Well, that's a really important question, and it's going to take a little bit of time. I'd rather not spend too much time on it right now, but I will give you a brief survey answer. Having had multiple properties and being a commercial real estate investor, my last building was a 90,000 square foot office building. So I've done this, and I've done this a lot. Mm-hmm. The answer is it takes leverage. So the short answer is property is based upon the income it could develop if you're an investor and not a speculator, mm-hmm. the income it can develop, and that income has something called a cap rate, mm-hmm. which stands for capitalization rate. Cap rates are almost always a function of treasury bills. So depending on whether you're in office or residential or warehouse or what have you, those cap rates will vary, but they never vary very much from the treasury bills. So office would have about 7% traditional 7 to 10% cap rate. Mm-hmm. And why 7 to 10? Because typically the treasury bill was somewhere between 4 to 7. So it was always about 3% above treasury bills. Well, treasury bills right now are 2.5, 3. So cap rates are at 5. So a cap rate at 5 means that you're earning 5%. So if you paid cash for that $300,000 property, the rent on that property should generate 5%. And how do you get more than 5%? You've got to leverage it. And remember, 2008 wasn't that long ago. What happened to leverage then? So most really good real estate investors, and I happen to play golf with the CEO and the ex-CEO of one of the country's largest REITs. It's called National Retail Properties. I play golf with them every single Saturday and Sunday, and they only leverage 50% of their properties. Now, they don't do it through mortgages. They go to the capital markets and they bond their assets, but they do it at 50%. I never had more than 60% leverage on any of my properties because of the risk associated with it. 30 to 50 is a good, prudent way to do it. You'll make less money and you'll have less risk, because risk and return, this is another writer downer. Risk and return are two sides to the same investing coin. If you want high rate of return, you must be willing to accept a high risk. On the other side, if you're only willing to accept a low risk, you must be willing to have only a lower rate of return. Right. It is as immutable a law as gravity and the law of human nature. It's never going to change. So let's talk. I hope I answered that for you.
No, that's great. I think, you went in a great spot. I love it. Yeah, because risk and reward, the more you put down, your leverage is less, but your risk is lower. I mean, the markets crash, you can recover far easier if you're looking at a 50% mortgage as opposed to a 90 or a 95% mortgage. Makes perfect sense. I love it.
So, and I've got a client in Chicago. I won't say who it is, and he's got multiple properties, and we searched high and low for real estate agents, and found a couple of real estate agents, and it's taken at least 6 months. And here was the rule. We said, move these properties, sell them. We're ready to roll. Don't get us the best price, sell them. Now, it's been 6, 7, 8 months, something like that, and they haven't moved yet. These are illiquid assets. And the most illiquid microcap stock that each of you on this call own is your private practice. Mm-hmm. It's a small business with lots of risk, and good luck selling it, and good luck getting maximum value out of it. So how do successful owners thrive, and why you might not be? And it's called P cubed. This is another writer down. How you do your accounting. I call it the principal profit priority, P cubed. So what is profit? Just got to notice that my internet unstable. So profit's an opinion. Ask any accountant. That's why your professionals who work for you want a percentage of gross revenue, not a percentage of net, because you can manipulate the net revenue. You can go buy another gizmo. You can spend more money in bad marketing by not listening to Jerry. You can do a whole variety of things to optimize your lifestyle that don't really optimize the profit of the practice. So profit's an opinion. Cash flow is reality. And how do you calculate profit? You've all heard about the saying, pay yourself first. I'm going to show you right now how to pay your profits first. And I want you to start slowly. Now, remember, you can increase your profit by 10% this year. 10% without increasing your revenue. Here's how. I want you to start with 1% per month for the first quarter. So whatever your monthly gross revenue is, the first thing you do after you pay yourself a reasonable wage, and that wage is what I would have to pay you if I owned the practice and you worked for me. So call it $150,000. Call it 80. Call it 200. Whatever you think I might have to pay you is the right number. Then you take out 1% of the gross revenue. So if your gross revenue were $100,000 this month, and you're paying yourself $10,000 of that $100,000 this month, take out $10,000, $1,000 for the profit. That's 1% of $100,000. Mm-hmm. Take that $1,000, put it into a separate savings account, not a checking account, that you cannot access. And you do that just for the first 3 months. So at the end of 3 months, you'll have $3,000. Then you double it for the next quarter. And for the next 3 months, you take out $2,000. For the next quarter, you go 3%. You take out $3,000. And for the next quarter, you go 4%. You take out $4,000 per month for that full quarter. Now, why do I say that? Because most of us do our accounting backwards. Remember in the beginning, we talked about all of the different biases and misunderstandings about money that we have. And what does every accountant tell us to do? And I get into fights with my clients' accountants over this. Here's what they tell you to do. Revenue, subtract out your expenses, what left is profit. Well, I would do that completely differently. Let me take a little diversion here. Another thing I think is completely different. This is why they call me the Maverick Millionaire Maker, because I am a maverick. I believe that every single graduation speech is dead wrong. And what they tell the young people to do? Follow your passion. Do what you love. Well, if that were true, I'd be smoking pot all day and playing video games. So that's total BS. It needs to be love what you do. If you're a sweeper, be the best sweeper you can be. If you're a dentist, be the best dentist you can be and have the best customer service you can have. Because your customer service is the reason why you may not be doing $5 or $10 million, and you can and you should be doing that if that's what you choose to do. So that diversion brings us back to, what does an accountant tell us to do? Revenues minus expenses is your profit. I want to reverse that. Revenues minus profit, then you manage to your expenses. Write that down. Revenues minus profit, then manage to your expenses. You have control over your expenses. There's a variety of people that I have that I find so much money, it's ridiculous. There was a $5 million practice. I found $500,000 in the first 7 months of engagement. There's a $1.5 million practice. I found $800,000 this person didn't even know that he'd had. So there are, and it's unbelievable, you'd think. So you want to manage to that practice, to that expense, not the other way around. And I promise you that I can find, now here, let's do this. Let's talk about what this number could be like. Let's look at it specifically on $1 million. So if your business gross is $1 million and your salary is, let's say, $300,000, is that what it should be, first of all? So that leaves $700,000 or $58,000 in expenses per month. 700,000 divided by 12 is $58,333 in expenses per month. Well, if we want to be less aggressive, we can only do $583 a month, which is 1% of that you'd save. I promise you I could find $583, 583 in every one of your practices with half my brains tied behind my back. Yes, profits are an opinion. Cash is the truth, and cash flow is king, the emperor of the universe. Now, I promise you I'd talk about the leaks in your bucket. There are 7 major places, and they occur in your insurances, in your taxes, and your tax strategy is one of the best investments you can make. Let me take a little detour here on tax strategy. So let's just say you've got a 401k. Let's just say you make $100,000 and you save $10,000 in your 401k. What will that $10,000 earn you? You can't be wrong. Write down what you think the $10,000 in your 401k could earn and chat that to Jerry, please. Pick any number. You won't be wrong. Or you're unlikely to be wrong. So you could say 5, 10, or even 15%. So therefore, on your $10,000 that you're saving, 5% of $10,000 is $500. 10% is $1,000. 15% is $1,500. So we agonize over what mutual fund and how much to put in the 401k, and all this time we're only getting $500 to $1,500. Now, I defy anyone to tell me where they can get 15% year in, year out, because at last I checked, that guy who was offering that is still in prison. So if we can find you just 0.5% on your $1 million practice, how much is that? Yes, it's $5,000. And if I could find that for you, that would now feel like a 50% return on your $10,000. And here's the critical part. How much risk did we take? None. And I've yet to have a client I couldn't find at least 2%. In fact, I guarantee to find more than twice my fee, or you get 120% of your money back. Here's the third place we find that there is a problem, and it's in payroll. And believe it or not, it's not what you think. We're not compensating enough. We're being too democratic in our compensation structures. Fourth place is in the retirement plan. Fifth place is in mortgages, which we talked about before. Sixth place is in automobiles and how and what we purchase. And the last place, the seventh place, is investments. And we're probably going to run out of time. I'm not going to have time to talk to you about investments now. Suffice it to say that we can certainly find 0.5% in every single one of your practice. Now that adds up to real money, last I checked, doesn't it? It buys a nice lunch. In fact, for many of us, it buys a nice weeks-long vacation. Now we're running out of time, so I don't have time to give you Levin's 11. Just let me tell you what it is. It's how you can increase your revenue this year by 50% using Levin's 11. If you're plugging your leaks, you can pour more water into your bucket. Your clients already know you, like you, and trust you, and your patients know you, like you, and trust you. Your customers know you, like you, and trust you, and guess what they want? They want more from you. In fact, they want you to be as rich as possible. Why? Because they want you to make them happy or happier. They want you to make them rich. I don't have time to go into Levin's 11. Let me just tell you that there are 4 areas that you only have to increase by 11% per year. That's less than 1% per month. You just saw how little 1% can be, which equals a 51.8% increase in revenue. Okay, I don't have time to go into investment and the 7-factor model and so forth. We're running out of time. I want to be respectful of your time. How many of you have learned something new tonight, or that I reminded you of something that you forgot? Please chat, Jerry. So here's my offer. Thank you. A lot of you have sent in this chat. Thank you for that. That you've learned something new, or I reminded you of something you forgot. My offer to you is to help you make more money, to gain back more time, to grow your practice, guaranteed. Yes, I'm guaranteeing to find you boatloads of money. Now, this is not for you if you are happy in your misery. You'd be surprised how many people there are. It's not for you if you believe you hung the moon. It's not for you if you're just phoning it in. This is for you if you're passionate about doing well by doing good. This is for you if it burns you up that your competitors are doing better and they don't deserve to. This is for you if you want to build real wealth. This is for you if you're coachable. This is for you if you want to work because you want to, not because you have to. It's what I call the work optional lifestyle. This is for you if you know there's something better out there for you. This is for you if you've been in business for more than 3 years and have a gross revenue of more than $250,000. And if you truly want to do better and to be better. So if you want more money, if you want more time, and you want more fun, here's what to do now. I'm offering that we will do a group call, and I'm going to give you a packet of information on a monthly basis. You'll have this packet. You'll get actually 2 a month. And they're about 35 minutes. You can listen to them on audio while you're driving. You can watch them on DVD. You're going to get a thumb drive, and you're going to get the transcript. So if you like to read, I prefer to read because I can read faster than you can talk. So I want to, and I certainly am not going to watch a video. That's just not me. So you're going to get them all ways, and you're going to get one every 2 weeks for the next 14 weeks. And we will be, and I've got 28 different modules we'll be talking about in great detail. And then we'll have these monthly calls that will last about 45 minutes to an hour, including Q&A, and you can offer the questions in advance. And once a quarter, I will offer each and every one of you who take me up on this to do this for, we'll have a 15-minute personal call with each and every one of you once a quarter. Now remember, I've got the world's greatest no weasel clause guarantee to find you at least twice my fees, or you'll get 120% of your money back. And if you're the first 6 to become accepted into the program, you'll also receive bonus number 1, a non-compete that really works. Bonus number 2, inbound and outbound phone scripts. You've already got these from Jerry, but I can tell you that your people are not doing it. I got a call the other day from somebody who said, "Is Mitchell there?" Well, I knew right away who it was. Nobody ever calls me Mitchell. And why don't they just say, "Hey, this is Jim from XYZ Insurance Company. May I ask you a couple of questions?" Don't ask me how I'm doing or how. Who cares? Nobody cares. Bonus 3, you get a free signed copy of my book, Payday, which is the book of how to maximize your practice for sale. And I'm going to share with you one more tidbit right here, right now. It's okay to overpay for another practice, and it's okay for you to accept less money than you think your practice is worth because it's cash flow. So let me tell you how I bought my first building by paying too much for that building. It was worth about $1,000,000, and I paid about $1,100,000 because the seller, I got him to agree to a master lease back. So I got my $100,000 back over a 5-year period of time of the lease. I'd never owned property before. I was afraid of what it might be to be a landlord. I didn't want to have to deal with the taxes and insurances and all this other stuff. So he agreed to do it, and I overpaid. I wound up selling that building for $2.1 million, so that was an okay deal. And it was okay that I overpaid for it because I got the cash to cover the $100,000 overpayment. He was happy because he got a capital gain treatment on his $100,000. I was happy because I got my $100,000 back, and because of depreciation and depreciation recapture, I got most of that money back just as easily as he did. So it's okay to overpay because of cash flow. And remember my guarantee. Now, I only do this a couple of times a year. Typically, here's my fee. And I think there might be 1 or 2 of you on the line who are already a private client. My typical fee is $8,700 upfront plus $3,700 a month. I just took on a client this week who's doing that. But because you're Jerry's clients, I'm not going to do that. The cost is only $29.95 upfront and $495 a month. You can quit anytime. And if after a year I haven't found you the money, you just tell me and I'll give you 120% of your money back, guaranteed. Now, this is a 2-year program. You should plan on being 2 years. As I mentioned, I've got this other client who is with me 8 years. Most of my clients will last 3 to 4 years. It's a 2-year program, and I guarantee you're going to find the money. So that's it. No more. What have you got to lose? There'll be a questionnaire that Jerry will deliver to you. All you have to do is request it, and you have to meet those criteria I talked about. So if you want more money, if you want more time, and if you want pride in your practice, more respect from your peers and community, this is for you. This is what you need. This is what you want. Jerry, we're at an hour.
So Mitch, how would you like them to reach out to you if they're interested in doing this? Would you like them to reach out to me, and how would you like to do that?
I'm open. Whatever you think is easier for you. Okay. They can reach out directly to me at levin.mitch@gmail.com. That's levin.mitch@gmail.com. And feel free to look me up. Go on Amazon. Check out my books. I've written 11 books. Go look me up on YouTube. I've got 2 YouTube channels. I've got Maverick Millionaire or Maverick Mitch, I think, Mitch Levin, or maybe even a third one. So I've got a lot of videos there. Check me out.
I'm in Mitch's program, by the way. We started in September. Is that when we started, Mitch?
I think so.
Yeah, I think it was in September. What I can tell you from my just going through the profit priority, the principle of profit priority, going through that, and I equated that, by the way, Mitch. I equated that to how much each month my merchant account dings me for. So every credit card transaction that we run through Jerry Jones Direct, I pay about 1.6%. I thought, well, look, if I can give them 1.6, why can't I give myself 2? Why can't I give myself 1, 3, 4? I mean, if you look at the discount rates of what we pay to get money from someone, Care Credit up to 15%. I mean, that literally is half your profits. So I looked at that and I was like, who can't do that? That's a no-brainer. So just some of the strategies and tactics you've shared with me, and the way I look at debt, the way to look at structuring business acquisitions and sales. And by the way, Mitch gave me a big hand. He and his team at Summit Wealth Management gave me a big hand in structuring the sale of my dental office. So, I mean, these things are important. And especially if you're getting up there to the point where you're looking at, okay, what is the transition like? You want to have someone like Mitch that you can go to and say, Mitch, I'm getting ready to do X or Y. I'm getting ready to buy a building. I'm getting ready to purchase 3 practices. I'm getting ready to purchase 1. I mean, having this guy in your back pocket to advise you. I mean, it only takes one minor, what you think is a minor screw up, And you're going to say to yourself, man, I could have bought 30 of Mitch's. Because look, the screw ups are painful, and we remember them when it comes to financial stuff. So, I know my outcome in 2008 would have been far different had Mitch and I known each other in about 2005. I wouldn't have made some of the mistakes I made, but I'm glad he's part of my world now. So there's a lot that Mitch has to offer that, you just can't even put your thumb on it yet because you haven't asked him the question. And that's what I find is so fascinating. Mitch is an encyclopedia, an interactive encyclopedia of deal making and structuring different components. Let's talk about one real quick. You mentioned, which I think is huge. You mentioned payroll. Now, most dentists bristle up and their hair kind of stands on end and they're thinking, well, I can't go above 25. 30 is my absolute top percent, and, I've got a different opinion of that than 99.9% of every consultant that runs around dentistry. I have a totally different opinion. But maybe you could just share a little bit of that just to give folks a taste of your thoughts on payroll.
So payroll is something that we all struggle with. And that percentage, it's good to even know what your percentage is. It's good to even have a benchmark that you can work towards. So if somebody has, I never want to go over 25 or 30% of gross revenue to payroll, I'm all in favor of that because you know what it is. What I would suggest, however, is that it's not the cost, it's what it does for you. So there's only a few reasons that you hire an employee: to do something you'd rather not do, to do something you're not qualified to do something that you shouldn't be doing because you're the highest paid employee in your organization, or because you want to get more time to enjoy something else. So there are not too many other reasons to hire an employee. So unless you've got those reasons in place, I don't care if your payroll is 70%, because the percentage, this is something else. We never really scale our numbers. I'd rather have 1% of $1 billion organization than 10% of $1 million organization, because the absolute number is so much bigger. And that's why you see these publicly traded corporations, their margins are razor thin in most cases. And our margins, we think they're pretty high, and yet if they were that high, they would sell for a multiple of what they sell for now. And partly it's because we haven't developed the systems. I have developed and refined all kinds of systems for how to sell a practice and get the maximum cash and cash flow out of it, and how to defer your capital gains taxes for 30 years. I just did that when I sold Summit 2 years ago. So it's not necessarily the percentage. It's not necessarily how much you pay an individual. It's what that individual's return on investment is for you.
You nailed it, because at my dental office, we ran routinely 38 to 39% payroll. Why? Because I didn't want to be there. I was more than happy to sacrifice 10% if I did not have to walk into that practice. It made me very happy, and it was a choice. I didn't want to manage it, so we hired someone to manage it. So that's one of those choices. It's a conscious choice to increase payroll for freedom.
And one thing, Jerry, that I think your listeners and the people on this webinar need to know is that I no longer have an association with Summit. I've sold my entire interest in Summit is gone. So I don't have a dog in the fight. I frankly don't care if you have this mutual fund or that mutual fund. I don't care if you've got this accountant or that accountant. I don't care if you buy this property or don't buy this property. All I care about is your success. And here's why I do this. So, Jerry, this is really, I think, very powerful. I do this because I want to, not because I have to. Frankly, and I don't say this to sound braggadocious and be cocky, and if I am, I apologize in advance. I'm a wealthy man. I do what I want, when I want, with whom I want. Right now, I'm spending the month in Park City skiing. In April, I'm going to Egypt. Flying first class, the works, the usual stuff. I'll spend June and July at the beach. I'll come back to Park City July, August, September to play golf. I play golf 3 days a week, sometimes 4 days a week, because after that, I can't do that. But here's why I do this. I do this because of two reasons. One is selfish, and the other is not selfish. The not selfish reason is you are my people. I started out with nothing. And I want you to succeed in the worst way. I want you to have the respect and the dignity and the financial freedom that you deserve and you earned. That's the non-selfish reason. Here's the selfish reason. I'm a customer of yours and I get treated like crap. And I want to be treated better. And I can help you to do that. And if I can't get you more money, you're unlikely to want to do that. So by getting you more money, I can be a better, a happier customer.
Mm-hmm. I'd like to review one more time the financial structure of your group coaching program. It's $29.95 up front. Is that what I heard you say?
Yes.
And then it's $495 a month.
And
correct?
$495 a month.
Got it.
And what they get for that is they get the entire product, which is delivered however you want it delivered every 2 weeks, and it's only 35 minutes. And I promise you've got 35 minutes every 2 weeks to absorb this information. And then you can develop questions from that. We can take deeper dives on that on the monthly call. And then you'll also get quarterly individual calls with me for 15 minutes each. So because I know many of you might not want to share your personal financial situation in a group setting. I get that completely. Some of you are okay with it, and some of you what we'll do is make a composite question so that we don't identify you, because let's face it, we all get embarrassed by our financial errors or misinformation or mistakes. So that's okay. Let's stop those. Let's learn from those, and let's get better.
I love it. I love it.
And I'm willing to spend another 4 minutes to handle any questions. If anybody's got any question about anything, and I'll get as detailed as you want. So at this point in time, if anyone's got any questions, feel free to raise your hand in the chat box, and I'll be happy to do that.
Yeah, and remember, there's a couple ways. You can do a Q&A, you can raise your hand, or you can put it in the chat box. There's actually 3 different ways that you can interact here. So feel free to, we've got Mitch for another couple minutes here. So you don't get a chance very often to talk to a guy that's done $500 million worth of business sales, of his own business sales, mind you, not like a broker, right? That's nothing for a broker. So,
to put a finer point on that, Jerry, not all of that was mine. About 400 and change million were my assets that I sold. There's about 100 million and change of clients' assets that I've sold.
Well, 100 here, 100 there. Pretty soon, like I said earlier, we got the wall built. So very good. Really great stuff. Great content, great information. I wrote down, by the way, I went back and I wrote down the cardinal laws. I wrote down the freedom formula. I posted that, by the way, here in the chat box for everybody to see. I wrote down your strategies, and I think the big takeaway, whether you choose to work with Mitch or not, the big takeaway for this is really that profit priority, the principle of the profit priority. I mean, you just have to suck the money out. Look, money left dormant in your company, in your practice. Why? Why do you have $50, $100, $200,000 in your checking account? Why? What is it doing there? Does it make you feel good? It's the worst place for it. You need to be leveraging that. You got to do something with it. If it makes you feel good, put it in a savings account like CIT Bank. They pay about, I think they pay 1.9, 2.1% or something like that. But man, you got to do something with it. You got to get it to work for you. But don't leave it in your practice. That actually, you could frankly lose it. One lawsuit and that 200 grand sitting in your practice, gone. Because that's an asset, and you lose, that asset's gone. So you want to really be careful and think about really critically, like worst case scenario. And Mitch is the kind of guy that can help you see these things, see the warning signs, and help you structure your assets, your financial assets, your personal and your business assets in such a way that you minimize the predators and creditors and all the thieves and liars and jerks out there that would love to see you go down in a flame. Jim, appreciate your thanks. Very kind of you, and David as well. I want to emphasize, if you want to get in touch with Mitch, his email it's his last name, Levin, Levin, period, Mitch, MITCH, @gmail.com. Reach out to him. I posted also the coaching program. It's $29.95 up front, $4.95 a month. It's a 2-year program. Good luck. By the way, Mitch, you've priced this too damn low, because good luck finding anybody that has a fraction of Mitch's qualifications for even, I mean, just good luck. You're not going to find anybody. I mean, frankly, why do you think I'm working with this guy? He is extremely unique, and there's just nobody like him that you're going to go out and find. I mean, you just won't. So reach out to him, get in touch, and get hooked up, because this is a guy you need in your court. Absolutely need in your court. So
thank you, Jerry. So before we wrap up, let me ask you a question, Jerry. Was this a good webinar from your perspective for your client base?
Absolutely. Again, if you just came on here and dove into the principle of profit priority, if you just talked about that for 30 minutes, 45 minutes, or pick a length of time, I mean, the nice thing is the principle comes across very easily. It's very easily to figure out that, hey, this is something of value. But if that's all we talked about, it'd be great. But when you get into some of these other areas and posing the questions, we all have these assumptions about reality and truth. And frankly, most of the assumptions that the general public makes are wrong. And the reason why the general public is generally poor is because they're wrong. They're relying on all the same information that they're spoon-fed by educational systems, by the media, by their parents. God bless our parents, but mine were not financially literate. They have become more so over the years, but they were not in a position to teach me about finances. They had no idea. And so I think you need to, as they say, you are the sum of the 5 people that you hang around. Your net worth equals the 5 people that you surround yourself with the most. Take an average. So when I get a chance to hang out with somebody like Mitch, I'm certainly up in my net worth just by being around him and listening and taking what he's saying and applying it to my own life. So if you want to continue, in the drudgery, in the mediocrity, you just keep doing what you're doing. But if you want something different, if you want to elevate, your finances, your how you feel about yourself and your position in life, your wealth, if that's something of interest, I mean, gee whiz, this is kind of a no-brainer.
Well, thank you for that, Jeremy.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. So I think that, let me remind everybody, you have nothing to lose by joining this program. And the reason I priced it this way is because you got to have skin in the game. If you give your kids money, and they don't have any skin in the game, they don't value it. They don't recognize it. And I really want you to do well. And you deserve to do well. You should do well. You work really hard. You're really good at what you do. You love your patients. And you can achieve the freedom, the autonomy, the independence, the dignity, and the respect that you deserve. And I know, look, as an MD, I know it. Sometimes you feel like MDs don't respect DDSs and DMDs. I know that. And that's a shame. It should never be that way. Because I'm not going to my family practitioner if I've got an impacted molar. That's never happening. In fact, I'm not even going to the family practitioner if I've got TMJ, for crying out loud. And if I get in a car accident and knock my teeth out, I'm not going to a neurologist or urologist or an eye surgeon. I got to go to you. And we're all commoditized to a large degree. And we don't have to be. You each have a unique value that you're delivering to the world. And we're going to find that, and we're going to announce it to the world, because it doesn't do you any good to have the finest French restaurant in the middle of the Sahara Desert. I'd rather have a hot dog stand in the middle of the Super Bowl, because at least I'll sell something to somebody and people will be eating, and I'll be delivering sustenance, and I'll make some money in the process. Because the money you make is a measure of the value you bring to the world. We're each and every one of us paid exactly what we're worth, not a penny more and not a penny less. So let's make you worth more.
Love it. Yeah, thank you. I don't see any questions. I think we're all caught up on our chat. I want to thank each and every one of you for your time this evening. It's a pleasure to have you here, and it's an honor to have your attention for this time. And Mitch, I appreciate you, as you know, very much, and for being part of our webinar tonight and bringing some of these concepts really into light for our folks here at Jerry Jones Direct.
Thank you. And if you'd rather not contact me directly, if you'd rather contact Jerry directly first and say, what is it with this guy? I don't know. Tell me more about him. Feel free to do that. Go through Jerry. I'm sorry to put you on the spot.
Hey, I'm an open book, and most of the folks who know me that are part of this webinar tonight know that I won't hold anything back, and I'll shoot straight. I got nothing in the hunt. I got nothing in the fight here, you guys. I don't get a penny of this. I got nothing. So I'm just giving you my honest, pure assessment of Mitch, and that's why I brought him to you guys tonight. So there's no money in this deal for me. He's not paying an affiliate commission to me. He's not paying me at all. So this is just, this is an opportunity that, you and you alone need to decide if it's for you. But I can't for the life of me figure out why you wouldn't. And if you have a question, absolutely, you guys can email me. You all have my email address. I'm happy to talk on the phone. Just reach out. I'll shoot straight with you and give you the is it the 411? Is that the 911? Whatever it is. I don't know all that hip language anymore. I'm getting old, Mitch. I've got gray in my beard and I'm bald. So, I don't know what the hip stuff to say anymore. But yeah, reach out. I'll be happy to give you feedback.
Thanks, everybody. Signing off.
All right. Have a great night, everyone. Catch you next time.
What would you like to know about Sandy Cobb?